Good morning, everybody. My name is Kyle. This is Auditing with Autism. You found the channel where we take a camera, we put it on our shoulder, I walk out into the world, and I film, my experiences as an autistic person in the world. So if you want to see what it's like to, be an autistic person in the world and how people react to us, then you found the right channel. Not only do I film my experiences in the world as an autistic person, but I also talk about them later. Today, I want to talk about the 7 relationship patterns that an autistic person, and really anyone, but especially if you're an autistic person, these are 7 relationship patterns that we can develop later on in life if we've had neglectful parents. And I want to say that I found this really great article on a website called Global English Editing. And there's an author by the name of Tina Fey. Pretty sure this isn't the same Tina Fey as, from Saturday Night Live and 30 Rock. But she wrote a really great article that I wanted to share with us today. And her writing style is so good. I'm going to just go ahead and read it and talk about it a little bit. These 7 points that a person who, had unavailable parents might develop as they become an adult. If you've had neglect in your life, these 7 points may express themselves. So I thought it would be interesting to talk about them since they're going to express themselves even much more if you have autism. She writes, quote, "Our childhood experiences often shape our adult lives, especially when it comes to relationships. And for those of us who had emotionally unavailable parents, certain patterns tend to emerge in our interactions with others as we grow up. And that these patterns, they're not something we consciously choose, these patterns. They're more like a roadmap that's been etched into our subconscious, guiding us down familiar paths, even when we might not want to go down those paths." So in this article, she says, we'll delve into the 7 most common relationship patterns that people with emotionally unavailable parents develop or tend to develop. And these aren't hard and fast rules, she says, but rather broad strokes, that may help us understand our own relationship habits better. And who doesn't want that? So, she says, whether we're trying to understand our own behavior or hoping to better comprehend a loved one's behavior, stick around because I promise you'll gain some valuable insights. Well, that sounds rather promising. So, let's stick around. Let's see what the first one out of 7 is. She says, number 1, emotional self-reliance. If you've been neglected as a child, you're going to do yourself a great benefit by becoming your own best friend. And part of becoming your own best friend is creating an emotional connection or relationship to that friend, to yourself. And so this is a quality that I find to be a beneficial quality. And one of the reasons why I thought it was good, maybe, looking for the good in the neglect that I saw in my own life. And so this is great. Emotional self-reliance. She says, this is perhaps, she says, one of the most common patterns that emerge. Growing up, you learn to lean on yourself for emotional support. Your parents weren't available to provide the emotional sustenance that you needed. So you had to find it within yourself, you know? And this self-reliance isn't a bad thing per se. It can make you resilient and independent, but it can also make you wary of relying on others emotionally. You might find it challenging to open up and share your feelings, even with those closest to you. Yeah. And this pattern might be difficult to break, especially if it's been a part of your life for so long. But understanding it is the first step toward change, and it's about realizing that emotional vulnerability is not a weakness, but actually a strength. And, sharing your feelings is not a burden on others, but a way to deepen your connection with others. And so, number one, emotional self-reliance is going to fall heavily into another point. One of the 7 points she mentions is trust, having trust issues, and gaining, giving trust to another is difficult if you've had neglect in your life and your childhood life. So being emotionally self-reliant is extremely important. Hey, Dexter dog, you want to come up here? You want to say hi to everybody? Come here. Come on, come here. He doesn't want. Come here, baby. So it's going to be difficult to give up our reliance on the emotional self that we've created, And to do that, we're going to have to trust others, and that's difficult. I'm going to continue. She says, number 2, if you've had a neglectful childhood, you may seek emotionally unavailable partners as an adult. Number 2, seeking emotionally unavailable partners. She says, here's where it gets a bit counterintuitive. You might think that growing up with emotionally unavailable parents would make you crave emotionally available partners. But more often than not, this is not what happens, and actually the opposite happens. You find yourself, she says, drawn to partners who are emotionally distant or unavailable. This might seem puzzling, but it actually makes sense when you delve deeper. We are naturally drawn to what's familiar, even if it's not healthy for us. And for someone who grew up with, emotionally unavailable parents, this type of behavior can feel like home when we find it in a partner. But it's not a healthy home, as she states. She continues, it's a pattern that can lead to a lot of heartache and unfulfilling relationships. But recognizing it is a crucial step toward breaking the cycle and seeking healthier relationships. So again, a lot of this has to do with trust, and I'm going to talk about that in a moment. But to continue, her list of 7 ways that a neglectful childhood will present as an adult. Number 3, fear of rejection. Yeah, this is a big one. I think everybody has this. And if you happen to be on the autism spectrum, you're not only going to have a fear of rejection, but you will have it because you will probably be rejected a lot. For example, the classic, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Well, if you're an autistic child with many siblings, for example, and the other siblings are always making the squeaky noises, and so the parents give them the grease, and in this case, the grease would be love. Well, the autistic child may not have a very good voice for being squeaky. They may not even know how to be squeaky and advocate for themselves that way. And so they don't get that greasy love that we all want, So fear of rejection is going to be magnified. It's exponential if you have autism, in my opinion. Well, what Tina says, she says, this is one that hits quite close to home for many of us. And she says, the fear of rejection can be a powerful motivator, often leading us into patterns of behavior that are not in our best interests. Growing up, the emotional unavailability of our parents might have felt like a form of rejection, and this can lead to a deep-seated fear of being rejected again, especially in our intimate relationships. So it can hold us back. It can make us afraid to express our needs or desires, and it can make us settle for less than we deserve. because we're afraid to ask, and we're afraid that asking will lead to more rejection, so we stay silent. You know, it's it's another issue of fear and trust, which is, I think, the big. I think fear and trust are the big points out of these 7. But she says, for now, remember this: fear of rejection is natural, and it's something many of us grapple with, but it doesn't have to control our actions or dictate our relationships. Understanding it is the first step towards breaking free of it. So, that's why I wanted to share, so we can all understand it. As I learn more about my autism by watching channels like Mom on the Spectrum and Claire with the Woodshed Theory channel, I keep getting insights into my life. There's so many times when I'll be like, that's me, or that happened to me, or, I can't believe they're talking about this because they're describing my experience. It happens so often that it becomes really clear that a lot of other people are experiencing the same things that I'm going through, and that just makes me feel better. It makes me happy, in the sense, not happy that we're going through them, but in the happiness comes from inclusivity. I'm a part of a group that's going through the same feelings and emotions and troubles, and therefore I'm not alone, and maybe together we can solve these. Power to the group, power to the people. So number 4, Tina Fey continues, number 4 is about trust. She says, number 4 is difficulty trusting others. She says, trust is the cornerstone of any healthy relationship. But for those of us who grew up with emotionally unavailable parents, trust is often a difficult concept to grasp. Uh, you know, as a child, when the people you're supposed to trust the most are not there for you in the ways you need, it can leave a lasting impact. It can lead to an inherent skepticism about people's intentions and a hesitancy to let your guard down. She says in her own journey, she's had to grapple with this. She says, learning to trust others, especially in relationships, was a challenge, but I discovered that it's possible and absolutely necessary. And I have to add that trust is so necessary that I'm going to say trust equals love, and how necessary you might consider love to be in a life. Trust to me is like love because it is the opposite of fear. If I have fear, I'm not going to trust. But if I have trust, I'm putting love into the situation, and fear is taken out of the situation. So, in my opinion, fear is the detriment to life, and love is the name of the game, the reason for the season, the purpose of life, love. She says that trust is so important that we have to discover a way to overcome our fear of it. And there's so many great channels that are dealing with autism that have information about how to overcome our fears. Orion Kelly, one of my favorites, the autistic guy, Orion Kelly, the autistic guy. He's got a lot of information that will give you confidence in overcoming fear of the other, or being in society, or just of your own self and the autism that you may or may not have. But your own self, you may have fear in how you're expressing yourself and you don't know why you're doing it. There's answers out there. There are many answers. Um, Tina says at the end of the fear paragraphs, she gives us a great quote by Ernest Hemingway, who says, quote, "The best way to find out if you can trust somebody is to trust them," unquote. Perfect. And while it's not easy, she says, taking that leap of faith can be an essential step towards building healthier relationships. It's as essential as love is to a relationship. Number 5, Tina Fey says, number 5 is another fear of intimacy. She says, intimacy is more than just physical closeness. It's about emotional closeness too. It's about letting someone just see the real you, warts and all. I love it. But when she says, when you grow up with emotionally unavailable parents, intimacy can feel terrifying. After all, if your own parents can't handle your emotions, how could anyone else? And that's a really great point. If a person feels like others, even their own parents, are scared of them somehow or fearful of dealing with them and their emotions and their autism, then how could we expect strangers to give us any kind of consideration in that way? So this is a really important point. She continues with it. She says, this was something I struggled with for a long time, the fear of intimacy. She says, opening up and allowing someone else in, it felt like it was too big of a risk to take. It took time, it took patience, and it took a lot of self-reflection to realize that it was a risk worth taking. Because at the end of the day, intimacy is what makes relationships truly fulfilling. It's what allows us to connect on a deeper level and build bonds that can withstand the test of time. Well said, Tina. I love it. The opposite of fear is love. That's what I always keep in mind whenever I'm afraid of something. Number 6, overcompensation. Interesting. Kind of like overconfidence. This is something I have trouble with. You know, with my lack of self-esteem, I tend to present myself in the world as being confident because I don't want to show that I am not that way, really. And so sometimes people are put off by that. Sometimes people like it and they think I'm better than I am and things like that. And very rarely do I find somebody who sees through it all and discovers the real me when I'm overcompensating. Let's see what Tina says. Tina says that when we lack something in life, it's not uncommon to overcompensate in an attempt to fill the void. For those of us who grew up with emotionally unavailable parents, this overcompensation can manifest itself in our relationships with others. And so we might find ourselves giving too much or caring too much. We might try to perfect a partner, and that never works. We might try to be perfect for our partner, and that never works. And we do this, she says, all in an attempt to avoid the pain of feeling emotionally neglected again. Again and again and again, we'll do things to protect ourselves and put ourselves in these bubbles. And it's not the healthiest thing in the world to do, she says. Tina's so honest. She says, in my own life, I've had to grapple with this tendency of overcompensation. She says, it took me a while to realize that I was giving so much of myself away, trying to be everything for everyone else, and that I was losing sight of my own needs and desires. That's a really great point. We can overcompensate by being selfish. We can overcompensate by being selfless. And in both of those cases, we're not being authentic to ourselves or to another person. So this is extremely important, especially if you have autism, to try to understand this about ourselves. She finishes by saying, as the great philosopher Plato once said, quote, the measure of a man is what he does with power, unquote. The measure of a man or woman is what they do with the power they have. That's a good one. It's so deep. You can think about that one all day, just thinking about that one sentence. But she says, and in relationships, finding the balance between giving and receiving that power is a powerful measure of its health and sustainability. So, just like Aristotle pointed out, the perfect man is the one who's the most balanced. He isn't too courageous and he's not too cowardly. Things like this. He is temperate. The virtue of temperance falls strong with Aristotle. So finally, Tina says, number 7, struggling with self-worth. Yeah. Do you feel worthy? I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy. Hey, Dexter, come on in here and say hi to everybody. Come here. Number 7, struggle with self-worth. Hey, here he is. Come here. Hey, baby. How you doing? You gonna say hi to everybody? Okay, hi. He's a boy. Come sit with me while I read the last one. Sit with me while I read. So she says, number 7, this might be the most raw and honest point of them all. Oh. When our emotional needs aren't met during our formative years, it can lead to a lifelong struggle of self-worth. Bingo! You might constantly question whether you're deserving of love, of care, of attention. And this inner turmoil can seep into your relationships, and make it hard for you to fully embrace the love that's offered to you. And I can't think of anything much more terrible than that. Just imagine a wonderful, beautiful person is, liking you enough to come into your sphere of consciousness and start sharing some love. And after they've gone to all the trouble and work to do that, you have trouble with that. You repel that. You're not ready. And that just seems like a tragedy, like a Greek tragedy where somebody really wants the thing that they are too fearful to receive. So let's hear how Tina puts it. She says, I've been there, the feeling of not being enough, of not being worthy. It's a painful place to be, and it's a hard pattern to break. But let me tell you this, you are worthy. You are enough, just as you are. And you deserve to be loved and to have your emotional needs met. Recognizing this is perhaps the most important step towards breaking these patterns and building healthier relationships. So let's hear how she says the next paragraphs are unraveling the patterns. How do we get out of these 7 troubles that we've created for ourselves due to our neglectful childhood? We reject love. We're fearful of emotion and meeting the other, and we don't open up enough. How do we break free from all that? She says the patterns that we've explored, that often develop in individuals who grew up with emotionally unavailable parents, are more than just behaviors. They are deeply ingrained responses born out of years of adapting and surviving. It's important to remember that acknowledging these patterns is not about blaming your parents or dwelling on past hurts. It's about understanding yourself better and gaining insights into why you would respond in certain situations the way you do. It's also about using this understanding to foster healthier relationships. She says, in my own journey, I've learned that healing is not linear, but a journey of self-discovery and compassion. It's about being patient with yourself about giving yourself permission to feel, and it's about knowing that it's okay to ask for help. Boy, asking for help is such a big one. I mean, when you ask for help, you've basically obliterated all 7 of these traits. You found the love and respect and care inside yourself to ask for help. You've put trust in another person to ask for help. It's really the most difficult thing to do. And that's why everybody says, to do it and to work on doing it, to ask for help. Well, she gives us these 7 points so that we can start to work on it. And I thought it would be interesting to share with us so that we could start thinking about it. And if you guys get a chance to check out these other websites that I mentioned, I highly recommend doing that. These other websites will give you an opportunity to learn so much more about autism and how to overcome the emotional and social deficits that can concur with, that can happen along with having autism. Or if you just know somebody that has autism, or maybe think you have it, you might want to watch these episodes so you can maybe take a test, see if you have it, or see if the person you think who has it maybe does or doesn't, and get them some help or emotional support at least. The other channels that I mentioned again were Mom on the Spectrum, Woodshed Theory, Orion, That Autistic Guy, and I'm going to throw out a couple more. Neurodivergent, with Jen in the name, neurodivergent, because her name is Jen. And then there's Autism After 40, Autism AF. He's a lot of fun to hang out with and to listen to. He's smart and has good information and is a hoot. So I think that's it. I'm going to end it here. I hope everybody has a great day. Of course, I always have so much trouble ending these, but I got to come up with a standard signature. But as we go through our day, let's think about somebody else for a second and just consider maybe this person has autism. Maybe this person is dealing with an emotional situation. And every day is an opportunity to give ourselves a little help. And if we have it in us, maybe give a leg up to somebody else. I love you guys. Thanks for coming. Hey, please like and subscribe. If you like this video, share it. Maybe ring the bell. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.